Well, welcome back. Earlier on, Colin Firth helped us to think about how we are ambassadors for God's kingdom, didn't he? We represent him here in East Yorkshire. We've just seen that God is able to give us everything we need in every situation. As the Old Testament tells us, the cattle on 1,000 hills belong to him. The abundant riches of his glory are available to us, and that means we should be content with what God gives us in any situation. I wonder how you felt at the beginning of the pandemic. Maybe you're a smaller person in our church and you just love to eat pasta. Maybe you only eat pasta, but for a while there was no pasta in the shops. You ate it at home and it ran out and you couldn't get any more. Were you able to be content with potatoes or rice instead? Perhaps you're missing sports. You can't go out and play with your mates. And are you finding that you are content? God has stripped away a lot of things for us, hasn't he? A lot of routines, a lot of things that we rely on. But he's still provided everything that we need. He's trustworthy. And the lesson we need to learn here is there in verse 11 for us. He says, I'm not saying this because I'm in need of pasta or sports or anything else, for I've learned to be content whatever the circumstances. Now, Paul does have a real need, doesn't he? He's running out of money and he might starve to death. But Paul didn't worry about it because he's learned to be content with want or with plenty. He knew that God would provide for him before the money ran out. At verse 12, Paul calls this the secret of being content in any and every situation. That word secret there means sort of deep religious secrets that you might find the great prophets had or the great leaders of the cults of Paul's day might pretend to have. But in Christianity, these deep secrets are revealed to anyone who is willing to learn them. What is the secret? Well, it's actually there in verse 13, isn't it? I can do all this through him who gives me strength. In other words, the secret of contentment is knowing that God has already given you what you need, and he will supply whatever you lack at the moment to meet the days ahead. And Paul didn't have his freedom, did he? He might have regretted that, but actually he had loads of opportunities for the gospel. He didn't have any money left. But God provided the Philippians, and so Paul was well supplied. And contentment is the ability to be happy with what you have, whether you have much or little. Biblically, it's the opposite of covetousness, isn't it? A covetous person is one who wants whatever anybody else has, even if they've got loads of things for themselves. But Paul has learned to be happy with whatever it is God provides him for the day. Twice Paul tells us that he's learned this. It's not automatic, is it? It's not something that we simply grasp with our heads. It's a thing that we learn in practice as God leads us on a path. For Paul, it seems that he had to learn it by the experience of two different extremes. Verse 12, I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. And that verb to know there is in the perfect tense, which means that Paul has come to fully know it, has been fully taught it, as he's lived both extremes. And perhaps that's what God is doing for us, isn't it? Teaching us contentment by taking away some of the things that we normally rely on. There's a phrase, perhaps you know it, it goes like this. When God is all you have, you find that God is all you need. When God is all you have, you find that God is all you need. And Paul has been stripped right back time and time again until he's only got Christ. He's in want, and God has provided for him again and again. God is enough. Christ is enough, not just for the future, not just as our goal, but also as our present help in trouble. Paul's learned that God is trustworthy by long experience. Every time Paul is at the end of his hope, God provides for him. When Paul is poor and hungry and alone, God draws alongside and provides food and shelter and friendship that he needs. By taking Paul on this journey, God has given Paul a great gift, hasn't he? Might not have felt like a gift at the time, but it is a great gift, a great grace gift. By teaching Paul this lesson, he's enabled him in the hardest of times in this dirty Roman prison to be a rejoicing person. We often feel such anxiety, don't we, in difficulty. And Paul is in a much more difficult situation than most of us will ever experience. But he's able to be content to rejoice because he knows that God will provide. He knows it down to his very bones. So Paul never has to worry. He's content. And when God provides through the generosity of the Philippians here, Paul rejoices in the Lord because he knows exactly where those gifts have come from. I wonder, where do you look for your provision? Maybe you look at yourself, to your job, your wits, your giftings. But if your job is in peril or you can't do it for a while, is your security wobbling too? Maybe we look to the government, but at the moment we're disquieted by confusing messages, changes of policy, and the certainty that nobody really knows what the best course of action is. Well, that can unsettle us, can't it? Until we remember that God is in charge and he will give us all that we need. And what do you look to for meaning? Maybe it's an achievement in your field of study or work. Perhaps having your exams taken away this year has been particularly hard because you don't get the chance to show how bright you are. But if God takes those things away, hard as it is to hear, it is because you don't need them. You only need what God provides. What do you think you need? It's a great question for us, isn't it? One of my friends said to me recently that God had stripped away all sorts of things that he relies on for his mental and physical well-being during this lockdown. Maybe you feel the same. Maybe you wish you could get out and do some things that normally provide you with your release. But my friend said to me, it has caused him to cast himself more onto God. And God was proving to be enough for him. I wonder, are you content with what the Lord has given you today? Might he be teaching you through this crisis that he is enough for you? And if you trust fully in him, you'll find joy and contentment. Maybe that is one of the things the Lord is doing at the moment. Well, we're going to sing again. This is a song which is perhaps new to quite a lot of us, though if you've been to the 6 p.m. service, you'll have sung it a few times. It's a song which reminds us that when we have Christ in us, we have enough. Yet not I, but through Christ in me. Let's sing.